Welcome back to Lucid Dreams, Threads of Eternity. What an episode! Who would have known a human and a quantum astral find each other? Today, I will be sharing Shadows at Midnight, Episode 4. We'll see if the staying power of love is real. Does it keep Will and Lyra safe? Let's see. The first week after the wish was pure daylight fire. My new body felt strong and alive in ways I had almost forgotten were possible, and every moment with Lyra felt charged with the growing attraction between us. We spent the hours talking, laughing, and simply being close, her hand in mine, her laughter filling the house, until the clock dragged her away at midnight. She always kissed me once, soft and lingering, before the pull began. "Guard me," she'd whisper, eyes already fading. Then the vessel would flare, suck her in like a breath into lungs, and I'd be left holding the cool crystal vault that still hummed with her warmth. I learned the rhythm fast. At 11:55, I would sit on the edge of the bed with the decanter cradled in my lap like a sleeping child. The house was quiet except for the low hum of the snake room heaters and the occasional slow shift of Scarlett's coils in her open tank. I'd talk to the glass anyway, low, stupid things. "Had a good day, didn't we?" Or, "Scarlett missed you already." Sometimes I'd remember the classical guitar, the Martin, I bought a few years into our marriage. How I practiced Bach in the evenings until life and kids swallowed the time and I never quite mastered it. The same way I could hear harmony but never quite sing it. I was starting to believe it. Inside that bottle, my eternal, majestic woman was folded into nothing, powerless, waiting for my voice at dawn. The thought made my new 27-year-old stomach twist every single night. The evening before the first attack, Lyra and I were sitting on the couch with Scarlett relaxing like a flat tire across the back cushions, her big red tail draped heavy and trusting. Lyra's head rested on my shoulder, but I could feel the small tremor in her body that never quite left when midnight drew near. "They're patient," she said softly. "The adversaries. They've waited centuries. One slip, one night I'm left unguarded." I squeezed her hand and gave her the cocky grin that still came too easily in this new body. "Hey, I've faced worse than shadows and cracks. Let me tell you about the frog demon." She lifted an eyebrow, swirling eyes curious despite the worry. Back in the mid-90s, right after Alana's mom Joy died, we went down to visit her stepdaddy in this tiny rural community, basically the swamps of northeast Florida, Swanee River Basin, couple hundred folks total. They lived so far out in the sticks, they had to import their sticks from the nearest town. Lyra said, "Sticks?" Paused a few seconds, and then she chuckled. Joy had been spiritually powerful, a leader of a little congregation of maybe a dozen souls. We stayed up late reminiscing about her life, how she could feel things other people couldn't, how she always knew when someone needed prayer. That night, around midnight, Alana woke me up screaming. She said there was a frog demon sitting on the nightstand, and it had touched her forehead. I sat up and I could feel it, this thick, negative energy in the room, heavy, feeding on fear like it was starving. The air tasted metallic. Alana was shaking so hard the bed moved. I didn't know what else to do, so I just called on the name of the all-powerful one. Loud, clear, no fancy ritual, just raw belief. The thing recoiled. The pressure in the room snapped like a rubber band, and the whole place cleared. We slept like babies the rest of the night. Alana told me later she'd never felt anything leave that fast. Lyra was quiet for a long moment, fingers tracing the back of my hand. "You protected her." I shrugged, still riding that old confidence. "Yeah, I did, so don't worry too much about these adversaries of yours. I've got power over evil when it counts. I've done it before. I'll do it again. For you." She smiled, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. "I hope so, Will. I really do." I was still riding that confidence the next night. On the 7th night, the shadows came. I had the decanter on my chest, one hand resting over the stopper, the other absently stroking Scarlett's warm bulk where she lay draped across my thighs. The big Suriname redtail was perfectly still, tongue at rest, trusting the quiet the way only she could. Midnight ticked closer. I felt the familiar tug in the air, like static before a storm, and braced for Lyra's nightly vanishing, still half grinning to myself in the dark. Bring it, shadows. I've banished worse. Instead, the room went cold. Not Georgia winter cold, something older, the kind of cold that lives between stars. The bedside lamp flickered once, twice, then died. Scarlet lifted her head in a single smooth motion, body tensed, rounding like an inflating tire, tongue tasting the air in rapid flicks. A low hiss rolled out of her that I had never heard before. Then the whispering started. It came from everywhere and nowhere. Layered voices like dry leaves scraping over stone. Slave to the glass, so easy to break, so easy to keep. The decanter jerked in my hands, not a gentle pull, the violent yank of something trying to rip it away. I clamped both arms around it, muscles that had only existed for a week locking like iron. No, I growled. She's mine to call, not yours. Laughter answered, wet and hungry. The glass began to frost over from the inside. Through the sudden opacity, I saw movement, Lyra's silhouette, pressed against the inner curve like a moth against a window, her hands flat, mouth open in a silent scream I felt in my own chest. The empathy Alana had hoped for hit me full force. Her terror, sharp and ancient, the centuries of owners who had forgotten her the moment the clock struck 12. I tasted her helplessness like metal on my tongue. I lunged off the bed, Scarlet flowing with me, and backed into the corner by the window where moonlight still fell. The decanter burned ice cold against my skin now. Cracks, tiny hairlines spiderwebbed across its surface. One of the voices separated from the chorus, oily and intimate. Give it to us, little hero. We can free her, our way. Eternal night, no more midnight cages, just endless nothing. No! I yelled again, but my voice cracked. I was 27 and stronger than I had ever been, yet I was still just a man holding a bottle while something ancient tried to pry my fingers open. Scarlet reared up beside me, hoodless but massive, body coiled in a protective spiral around my legs. Her hiss rose to a warning rattle I didn't know boas could make. That cockiness I'd felt the night before died hard on the floor with Scarlet wrapped around me. The frog demon had been one scared local thing that fled at a name. These adversaries were older than names. They didn't flinch. They laughed. Then I did the only thing that felt right. I started talking to Lyra through the glass the way I had every other night, only louder, steadier. Hey, it's me. I'm right here. Dawn is coming. You feel that? The light's already turning the sky behind the pines. I'm not letting go. Not ever. The words poured out, stupid, fierce, loving. I told her about the garden we'd plant tomorrow, about the trail we'd hike where the leaves were still gold, about how I was going to spend every single daylight hour making sure she never felt trapped again. My voice shook, but it didn't stop. The frost on the decanter began to melt in small patches. Lyra's silhouette pressed closer to my side of the glass. I felt her reaching back, not with hands, but with that same layered warmth that had first filled my hollow places. The cracks stopped spreading. The voices snarled. The cold intensified. Something invisible slammed into my chest, hard enough to drive the air from my lungs. I staggered, but kept the decanter clutched tight. Scarlet struck at the empty air, fangs flashing, missing nothing and everything. Pain bloomed across my ribs like I'd been hit by a truck, but the wish held. No broken bones, no internal bleeding, just bruising that would heal by morning. Extreme trauma only, the wish had said. This wasn't extreme enough. Not yet. I slid down the wall until I was sitting, legs splayed. Scarlet coiled across my lap like living armor. The decanter pressed between my heart and hers. I love you, I whispered directly to the glass. You hear me in there? I love you, Lyra. And I'm not 65 anymore. I've got decades of daylight to give you. They don't get to take even one midnight. The assault peaked. The room shook. Books flew off the shelf. The window cracked. But my arms didn't budge. I kept talking about Scarlet's slow heartbeat against my thigh, about the way Lyra's hair moved like tide water, about how I was going to learn every single thing that made her glow brighter. The voices began to fray, thinning like smoke in the wind. Then, somewhere far off, a rooster crowed. Not in Decatur, too early, too impossible, but the sound carried anyway, a promise of dawn. The cold snapped away like a broken rubber band. The decanter warmed in my hands. The cracks sealed themselves with soft golden light. Lyra's silhouette relaxed, sliding down the inner curve until she was curled at the bottom, safe. I sat there until the real sun crept over the horizon, breathing like I'd run a marathon. Scarlet finally relaxed, tongue still, head resting on my knee in perfect trust. At the first true ray of light, I lifted the stopper with shaking fingers. "Lyra, come walk with me today." She spilled out in a rush of pearl and starlight, straight into my arms. Her whole body trembled. She buried her face in my neck and held on so tight I felt her life rhythm like a heartbeat against my new young ribs. "You guarded me," she whispered. "You felt me, all of me. The cage, the dark, the centuries." Her voice broke. "No one has ever felt it with me before." I stroked her hair, the motion automatic now, protective. "I'm learning, slowly. It may take me decades," thinking to myself sarcastically. "But I'm learning." Little did I know. That morning, sitting there with Lyra in my arms and Scarlet watching from the floor, I finally tasted humble pie. And it wasn't half bad. The frog demon back in the Suwannee swamps hadn't fled because of anything special in me. It was the all-powerful one who answered when I called. Raw belief, nothing more. I'd been strutting around in this 27-year-old body like I was the one with the power. Turns out, I was just the guy lucky enough to say the words. These adversaries were something else entirely. Older, colder, patient as stone. They didn't run from a name the way that little swamp thing had. But if the all-powerful one could work through an ordinary man once, maybe he could do it again. I'd just have to keep choosing to stand there, night after night. I pulled back just enough to look at her swirling eyes. "They almost had you." "They will try again," she said quietly. "The adversaries know my weakness now. Every midnight I am theirs to reach for, unless you are there. Unless you keep choosing me night after night." She touched the faint bruises already fading across my chest. "And you paid for it already." "Worth it," I said, and meant it. The old hollow places didn't even ache anymore. They were full of her terror and her trust and the fierce protective thing that had woken up in me the moment I felt her scream without sound. That morning, we simply held each other on the bed while Scarlet watched from the floor, calm and ancient. Later, we walked the garden anyway, hands laced, talking about what came next, maybe the old cabin up north, somewhere harder to find, somewhere with thicker walls between midnight and the world. Lyra kept glancing at the decanter where it now hung from a cord around my neck, small and deceptively innocent against my skin. "They will come for the vessel when I am inside it," she said again, softer. "But they did not count on you feeling what I feel." I kissed her temple. "Then they're going to keep being surprised." The Georgia sun climbed higher, warm and ordinary, and ours for another 14 hours. But in the back of my mind, the shadows lingered, not as fear anymore, but as a promise. I would stand between her and every midnight they could throw at us. And one day, when the time came, I would walk home to Alana without regret, because I had given every single daylight hour to loving someone the way she'd always hoped I could. I woke the next morning with the decanter warm against my chest and the bruises already gone. "We can't stay here," I said quietly. She nodded once, eyes swirling with quiet relief. By noon, the truck was loaded, Scarlet in her travel crate, garden gloves tucked beside Alana's letter, the Martin guitar strapped in back like a passenger. As we wound north into the mountains, the Georgia pines gave way to hardwoods turning gold. I caught Lyra's hand across the console. "Every mile we put between us and that house is another mile closer to whatever comes next." She smiled, but I felt the small tremor in her fingers, the same tremor I'd felt through the glass every midnight. The cabin waited like an old friend who already knew our secrets. For now, the decanter rested warm against my chest, and inside it, waiting for the next dawn, was the woman I would guard with everything I had become. That was quite a battle. At least Will and Lyra survived. I hope you enjoyed Shadows at Midnight. Our next installment, Episode 5, Threads of Eternity, we will discover a little about Lyra and her adversaries, the Voidkin. If you like the series so far, press the subscribe button as the real action is just around the corner. Also, ring that notify bell so that you don't miss a thing.